welcome to Spotlight, coming to you from the beautiful sanctuary of Christ Church Cathedral in Vancouver. I'm Trevor Carolan, and I'm joined by Henry Young on guitar and Paul Blaney on bass in this special presentation of road trips in pandemic times. We'll be presenting a number of travel stories, spoken word sketches, and listening to some cool jazz sounds drawn from selections from Road Trips, my new book, published with Mother Tongue here in British Columbia. This first selection is from Morocco. It's called Marrakesh Blues. And I'm mindful here that, Henry, I think when you were touring with Nina Simone's band, you've played Marrakesh, so old times. Marrakesh Blues. Some journeys feel as if they were forever ago. Others stay vivid in mind from when our eyes, our ears, our heart were fully open and alive. I'd been thinking about the Sahara for a while. An opportunity arose for a book I'd done on one of the beats, and I crossed the Atlantic with my wife, Quang Shik. The Pompidou in Paris was showing a major exhibition. Beat Paris, beat LA, beat art, you name it. The French are invested in the beats. Ginsberg, Corso, and Burroughs, they all hold up to write and live on the cheap at Rue Guit-le-Coeur, close by Notre Dame. Jack Kerouac stayed long enough to crank out a draft of his Satori in Paris. And always there is the occult creativity of Brian Gysin, that odd surrealist painter savant whom Canada has never really claimed for itself. You know, coming to Paris for the Ginsberg book, Justine, our painter friend from the Six Aron, said, "Then why not go to Morocco? I'll tell you where to stay." You're in North Africa now. The minarets, the call to prayer, Alhamdulillah. On the boulevards, it feels as if you haven't shaved for a couple of days, and always there's a little grit under your nails. This is a place of curious dreams, coffee, clouds of strong tobacco everywhere. We adopt the Diamantvert of Rue Ibn Hamza as our breakfast place. I switch to drinking thé du menthe without rock sugar. The coffee is short and bitter. A friend sends a letter. I write in reply, "Marrakesh is a red city, bustling. Mornings are pleasantly cool. The Jama El Fana is a great public square. It's frantic at night with throngs of milling people, fires blazing around the edges near restaurants and bizarre stalls that sell delicious sheep's head stew. Wild Noosa mountain drummers and hornmen that Brian Gysin claimed are vestigial panpipers from ancient Greece arrive at dusk. When the snake charmers leave, it's still all here. Last night, a blue-black desert man flayed hypnotic trance notes over and over on his two-string goatskin gourmet, with drummers and cymbalists circled around him, same note after plangent note, building wave on wave of repetitive desert sounds in the dark as elderly village men and slick-dressed hipster dudes broke down, dancing uncontrollably. I said, this is wilder than Jimi Hendrix, and flashed that he'd been here too, immersed in the trance. after Brian Jones from the Stones had pointed the way and crazy Geisen from Edmonton had turned on London to the desert vibration. Crowds gathered round the dancers called out, "Sahar, Sahar." Days later, we mount camels. The males are bad-tempered beasts with an attitude. You roll along, wobbly with the flow, seated on a hard platform. You're higher than you'd expect and had better not fall. Steadily, the appalling smell of camel seeps into every rag you own. But it's a simple life, the desert. The nomads say in French that they live in paradise. I ask in a scrabble of French, what does Sahar mean in your language? Ali looks at the endless rolling hills and dunes, laughs with a Berber friend, responds, emptiness. Pair of brief sketches from a piece in the book called San Francisco, City of the Sacred and Profane. En route to San Francisco, down the coast from Vancouver, the small communities of Bolinas and Stinson Beach have been home to many artists, musicians, and writers for decades. The whole coast here has been a natural incubator for creative living. The late poet Lawrence Ferlinghetti loved it here, and I'm mindful that another poet from Vancouver, Bud Osborne, loved Lawrence's work a good deal, and I'm mindful that Paul Blaney played with Bud Osborne. We called it lineage bearing. I remember walking one morning with Joanne Kiger, the poet, down the lane from her little house to the village paper she edited for decades. She spoke of her approach to writing. You pay attention to the moment, to the detail, she said. Her graying hair like a badge of wisdom. Maybe it's a part of meditative open consciousness like what Ginsberg was talking about. Language and the architecture of liberation, but the body is a vehicle for consciousness too. We stand looking across Bolinas Lagoon at Stinson Beach, where Ken Kesey and the Grateful Dead worked at getting San Francisco's countercultural project off the 60s launchpad. Sir Francis Drake sailed here too during Shakespeare's time. What a nexus! You hear the sea crash on the rocks and can smell the salt tang of the spray in the warp and weft of life, not far from San Francisco, one of the true great Renaissance cities. San Francisco is hip. New York is hip. But Havana's Calle Obispo is the finger-snappingest street on earth. It doesn't get any cooler. Narrow, packed with strolling couples, wild art galleries, boutiques, open-air cafes, one after another with swinging bands, rumba combos, lobsters, chilled Cuban beer, top-quality rum, and revolutionary cigars everywhere. You can have fun all night for $25 here, and there's still a lot of living for free. Viva la revolución! Outside a cafe one Sunday evening, we passed a young man singing, just him and his guitar. Seated on a rattan chair in the street, he looked like a movie star, singing with the voice of an angel that brought a thrill to your heart. A block away, Plaza des Armas, an old black Cubano musician sat in the shadows of a colonial palazzo, dressed in swinging Bona Vista Club threads, sharp white suit, black shirt, two-tone shoes, hipster tie, and a natty Panama brim, playing bluesy trumpet in the night, not worried about who listened, an aging young rebel blowing beneath the stars. We met a Pole who told us about the music that the bands played. That song they're playing, they're singing. Can you understand? He asked, reaching over from his chair. Hasta siempre comandante. It's for Che Guevara, faithful until the end. If you've got a romantic speck in your genome somewhere, then all roads lead to Paris. This is from La France, toujours la France. I've tried to remain faithful to Paris, the city of love. The artists and writers have all been here. Impressionists, post-impressionists, Scott Fitzgerald, Gertrude Stein, Henry Miller, the Beats. In Paris, an education in art and culture unfolds organically. Start with any comfortable cafe terrace, dust off that high school French and plump up your savoir-faire. My own first walkabouts were in the shabby streets of Pigalle, backed up with late-night sessions where Guadalupe's Al Lirvat played tailgate trombone with his swinging band at La Cigale. On its great magic hill, Sacré-Cœur, with its oddly proportioned dome casting an all-seeing gaze from Montmartre across the city. At evening, La Crépuscule, that blue Parisian stretch before the last light fades along the Seine, has been celebrated by poets since Baudelaire. Then the unexpected treasures, that first unforgettable sight of Notre Dame before the fire with its towers and sacred beauty, its tragic legend of the hunchback that children love. Just upriver, La Musée d'Orsay with its impressionist collection across from the Louvre. Degas, Matisse, Van Gogh, Toulouse-Lautrec, sculptures by Rodin, Cézanne's canvases in praise of sunny Provence. At the Pompidou, in a room themed The Doors of Perception, we come upon a series of photographs by Allen Ginsberg of Kerouac and Burroughs, displays of their books, French and English, film clips of the beats run in sequence, and moving on, you spot a pair of images by Brian Geisen, hauntingly beautiful, from Edmonton. His Chinese inked ideograms, learned as an army translator in Vancouver during the war, blend in black Arab-style calligraphics, studied through long years, tough times in Tangier. Their ochre and golden backgrounds suggest atmospheric, hieroglyphic bliss. Kandinsky meets Wang Wei. We stop at a bar near L'Église Madeleine, cognac pastis. This is the way Paris is supposed to be. My wife asks, do you think you can truly teach people art? Justine, her painter friend, says, you can learn to cultivate sight, to draw, to sculpt. What you can't learn has to be inside you, the motivation. There are a lot of ways to arrive at keeping the voices inside us alive. It's important to find your own discipline. Working alone means you must always confront the self. So you must find your own self-discipline. It's not so much can you learn art as find your own voice. Then, a last morning. As always, it begins with a glance, the long view from the studio across a squabble of rooftops to Sacré-Cœur, emerging from its shadow with the sunrise. We take coffee, some fruit, leftovers from the night before, and set off calmly with our packs through the great front doors beneath a lifting sky. With a final wave, we pass the waiter at Café de Raphael, and he waves back. Then we clatter down the street toward the metro at Austerlitz. In poor countries, you see faith up close. Laos still feels like a village and moves slowly. Gardens overgrow with perfumed frangipani. The monks pass by in orange robes. I think of dusk at a cafe when the light is fading and mist settles over the sleepy dragon peaks. The Mekong flows in a lazy green bend, and the shoreline temples are a huddle of papaya and banana. Evening chants echo from a nearby temple as we gaze at the water, at lantern boats setting out for night fishing. It's the loveliest spot on earth. But I've said that before, I tell my wife. She smiles. We muse on the joys and knocks of travel. We've released fish in the river, an act of atonement among Buddhists here. We've much to be thankful for and sins in need of forgiveness. In this quiet bliss at the end of day, beneath a dimming sky, life is like a dream, a peaceful world. It came to me then, a good death must be like this. May every sincere traveler receive the 4 sublime gifts: longevity, good health, great happiness, and wisdom. May you count the wise to be the wealthy, and may your travels be blessed. from Christ Church Cathedral in Vancouver for road trips in pandemic times. I'm Trevor Carolan with Henry Young on guitar, Paul Blaney on bass. Thank you all for joining us. Happy trails.